good morning to all our MAQ TV viewers as we continue our interviews in this very sad time, the time of the corona pandemic. I'm joined by a very dear friend of mine, a very dear friend of Cricket Council USA, and a very dear friend of cricket in America. He's the big wig across there in Chicago. He's the president of Midwest Cricket League, a man who has done so much for cricket. I want to say good morning to Shiraz Najam. Good morning, Shiraz.
Good morning, Vinod. How are you?
I'm good. Not as good as you. You look very good this morning. Seeing that you can't play cricket, you seem to be happy.
You got to force some happiness, Vinod, right? Because you got to put up a face for the people at home. If you're sad here, then your cricket season, if it happens, will be in jeopardy.
Yes, definitely. But first, let's touch on the situation concerning the COVID-19. I know it has been pretty rough across there in Chicago, and I'm glad to see you here this morning, Shiraz. I'm glad to know that you're happy. I've been in touch with through Facebook with Asma and these guys, and they seem to be okay. I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah, so far so good, Vinod. Obviously, everybody is a little concerned and down with respect to the season 2020. But overall, if you stay inside, you follow the guidelines from the Illinois Department of Public Health, from the Center for Disease Control, and not necessarily from the White House, I think there's a good chance you would survive this without a lot of effect on you.
Not necessarily from the White House. But what's the situation as we speak this morning, Shiraz? Well, at least in Trinidad and Tobago, I can tell you we have 113 confirmed cases. We have had 8 deaths, and over the last 3 days, we have not recorded any positive cases, which is good. I know the situation is not as good where you are. Give us an update as what's the current situation in terms of the numbers there in Chicago and Illinois.
I try not to follow the numbers exactly. It's a little bit of a fear factor kind of sets in, Vinod, but just being careful. But I do know, last I checked, that we had over, I think, about 10,000 cases in Illinois. We crossed that about, I think, last week, and more than 600 deaths in those 10,000 cases. More importantly, we're scaling up our ability to ensure that we can get the amount of medical care ready for a peak that if we will hit. The governor of Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker, this past Friday, yesterday or Thursday, he announced that school will be closed for the rest of the year for the entire state of Illinois, which was a big announcement considering the COVID, which means that normalcy is not going to return until after the school year has again started next year in September. So we're in it for the long haul as far as I'm concerned, because if you have kids at home who are unable to go to school, it's going to affect the entire ecosystem of work life in terms of where the kids are going to be. If parents have to go to work, how do we come back to normalcy? It's kind of weird how schools play a critical role in all of this.
So you're telling me that school is off until September?
Yes. So basically, schools are typically open in Chicago until first or second week of June, and they then close out for the summer vacation. When this COVID announcement took place, e-learning was kicked in Illinois, where teachers were teaching students over an electronic platform, maybe Zoom or what have you. But on Thursday or Friday of last week, until then, everybody was wondering if we're ever going to get back to school for the rest of this year. And it was announced in Illinois that there will be no more return back to school for 2020.
Yes, definitely. That's the situation here in Trinidad and Tobago as well. But, it's necessary to take these precautions, especially amongst the elderly and the young population as well. But sad times. I know we always look forward to coming up. That's the MAQ TV crew for your Unity Cup. What's the situation? I know it's a difficult question, but I'm knowing you being the eternal optimist, I'm sure you're hoping to get on that playing field before the end of the year.
We are. We had a leadership team meeting here in Midwest Cricket Conference and Youth Academy, Vinod, and obviously not only a regular season, but a very vital element of our cricket season is the MAQ T20 Chicago Cup, or the MAQ T20 Unity Cup, which we host in the memory of Shekhar Arvind. So while we are trying to figure out the details of what it would be like, we are trying to put in place the mechanism. So if something opens up, we can quickly get back on the field. Because as you know, putting up a cricket league of up to 40, 50 teams anywhere takes a lot of planning, scheduling, sourcing of cricket balls, sometimes from Pakistan or India or Australia, and then reserving the parks, the grounds from with our park district partners. So there's a lot of pre-planning that is going on. So we are trying to get done with that pre-planning phase here in the Midwest Cricket Conference. So if the governor comes on TV, let's say next week, and says we found a vaccine and everything can go back to normal, which is I think what it will take to get back to complete 100% normal. So we are then ready within a week to turn over a cricket season.
Well, that's very good. That's excellent planning. That's good foresight, and I want to say congratulations to you on that. It's nothing that surprises me. You've taken leadership in this Midwest to a different level. But tell me, Shiraz, in terms of imports, would it be very difficult to get stuff out of Pakistan and Australia and India for cricket, given the current situation?
Absolutely. I think the challenges are paramount right there because of the supply chain and how it's impacting the global market, the pandemic, how things are moving slowly, right? If you're a Prime member, which guarantees two-day delivery, right now it's standing at 8 or 10 days with a lot of things that you need. So as we go through these motions, what we were able to do as an organization successfully was stock up at least for 6 weeks. If we have a 10-week season, we've got cricket balls that are available to us for up to 6 weeks for 40 teams, which worked out really well. I was wondering what I'm going to do with all of that cricket ball earlier this year, but now it seems like they've put themselves to a really good use in case we get interrupted with our supply chain.
Yes, definitely. So again, that's excellent planning, and I want to congratulate Midwest on that. What about MAQ T10, the USA Nationals? That is a tournament that you normally attend, and news from the CC USA headquarters is that it's postponed at the moment. There is an optimistic hope that it could be played in September, if not October. And Maq is even thinking, if all fails, even November, just to give people a look in at some of the players who they would like to employ during the US Open in December. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, always the optimistic Mr. Qureshi, and if you combine Mr. Qureshi and cricket, there's always a possibility that he can make possible what is seemingly impossible. So under these times, obviously, it's a big disappointment for our players who are planning to represent Midwest Cricket Conference or the Central region in the MAQ T10 as we typically do. The fact that it was postponed and possibly postponed until November of this year, it's always a disappointment. But I'm just glad at the ability of the Cricket Council of the USA to be able to accommodate these situations and plan accordingly, because it makes sense. Better sense has to prevail. We need to be following the guidelines and instructions in order to keep our cricketing fraternity safe and sound. So obviously always looking at opportunities to play out there in Florida. As you know, we've hosted a US National, CC USA National in Chicago a couple of years ago, and East Region team won that tournament. So if all else fails, as long as it's not past September, there's always an option of hosting one here in Chicago with the CCUSA.
And I know you have the balls for the tournament, so that'll be good. I should whisper that into Max's ear. But do you think it's a long shot that the US Open will be staged this year, the 12th edition?
So I've been reflecting on that quite a bit, Vinod, right? I think if there is one tournament that has really have any chance of conducting itself in 2020 for cricket in the USA, it's the US Open 2020. And a couple of reasons why I think that. One, Maq Qureshi is always the fearless leader who's trying to make sure that the cricketers who are hungry for cricket in America are getting the right platform. So his passion to host that tournament uninterruptedly is number one in making sure that it happens. Two, just the sheer timing of the window that the US Open has. it's the last big hurrah event of 2020. So it's in December, which means that we've got a good runway or up to 7 months right now, which I hope that we can use to put to good use and get back to normalcy. So if there is any tournament that has a chance or a possibility of happening in cricket in 2020, and I could even include the ICC T20 World Cup, which is planned for Australia in September and October, I think that's at a risk as well, just because of the sheer attendance volume that people are expected to do, the travel that is involved. But with the T20, US Open scheduled in December, the footprint of the tournament, the ability of the leadership team to ensure that we can manage social distancing guidelines within that tournament, that gives us a great chance to take place as planned.
I definitely think so, and as you said before, and that's critical. 7 months. One thing that if the world can't get back to some degree of normalcy within 7 months, we may never get back to normalcy, and that is something we're really hoping for. Your take on this, Shiraz, the fact that, and you brought up a very interesting point, the fact that the US Open T20 may be the only tournament at this point in time that is looking, I might say, guardedly safe because it's 7 months away. Do you think that if that's the case, this year the interest in the US T20 will be tremendous?
Yes, I think as usual, right? There's no parallel tournament in the US anyways, and it has never been there, right? So there's no lack of interest in like, I know you and I have talked about it, that when we open up registrations for US T20, sometimes over 130 teams have applied to get in. And then we have to go through a unfortunate exercise of reducing that footprint based on our resources, the planning, the availability of fields, the quality of the tournament. We have to cut down. So there is no lack of enthusiasm as far as US Open cricket is concerned. So I don't know, based on the lack of cricket or the hunger that people have had, obviously, and more importantly, as you can see, if seasons don't take place, like if cricket season, unfortunately, in the Midwest can't take place because we are a cold climate city, we only have a few months of cricket between May and September. There's a lot of money that has been now not spent on cricket by these cricketers, on gears, on entry fees, on other elements of hosting and playing in the league. Now, a lot of these resources can be combined by these teams. Instead of paying $2,500, $3,000 to play in the season, they can now aside that money and venture out to either lurk at winning the 100,000 at the US Open, right? So a lot of that also works out in the favor of the US Open.
Makes a lot of sense, which means that the authorities at CCUSA may well have to consider, if it happens like that, they may well have to consider increasing the number of teams. I know last year, and sometimes things happen and you don't really see it, but it happens for good. Once you have great intentions, and MAQ has always shown that, he's just a cricket lover, a lover of people. And last year, all of a sudden, he opened up his stadium, which really helped us with the rain to complete the tournament. Now with the added stadium there, he may well have to consider increasing the number of teams.
Yes, absolutely. One of the beauties about a tournament like US Open or things that CCUSA put out is the ability to find backup plans, right? And not just Mr. Qureshi, but I have to credit the entire team of CCUSA. Sufyan, yourself, Rashid, Asif, Sarfaraz, people who are on the backgrounds really trying to Umair, all of these people. The fact that we can be so flexible and mobile just to ensure that we can get 3 hours of cricket in any place to ensure that the tournament's moving along is one of probably the biggest, most impressive thing about putting out tournaments such as these. So in addition to Mr. Qureshi's intent, because he's well known for expressing his intent, and then everybody's kind of trying to run around to fulfill those elements of his intent. Which takes a lot on the team, right? But the fact that people behind Mr. Qureshi are able to execute on his intent and comply with the flexibilities or the needs of the tournament such as the US Open is a testament to how experienced this team is and how well it has been led and how well do they know their their tournament, so they can move things along at a very good pace that no other tournament I have not experienced is able to do that.
Well, I want to add a name to that lineup that you just called, and that's Shiraz Najam, because you're a very valuable member, as a consultant to us here at CCUSA. We lean on you, we depend on you. As Max say, when Shiraz says something, it has to happen. And, I guess you would also be lending tremendous support as usual if that situation happens. You spoke of MAQ Qureshi just a while ago, and tell us a bit about your association with him and his value. I call him the godfather of cricket in America, and his value to cricket in America with the things that he has done.
It is unparalleled. Then in just a short phrase, I don't think there's enough words to express what a single person can do for a sport in any particular footprint, and to do it in a large footprint as the US, which has a huge cricketing market, which has a huge cricketing. By some numbers, there's more than 500,000 active cricket players in the US right now. And just to be able to be a person that always answers the phone for a cricketer, being where you are, being what you have accomplished, it's just a fantastic place to be. And it does not come without its challenges, right? Back in 2011 is when we first experienced the goodness of Mr. Qureshi, where we had recently lost our fearless leader, and then we decided to host a tournament in his memory. It was a really small print thing. We drafted about 100 people, 100 cricket players within our league, made 8 teams out of it, and assigned some captains, what have you. And at that time, we didn't have the budget to host something like this. We didn't have the experience to host anything like that. And luckily, we had insight into a gentleman who was all ears for anything cricket. And Atif Sheikh, our business officer at the time, VP of Special Tournaments, reached out to Mr. Qureshi for a quick discussion and proposal on this is what our intent is. And we were asking for support, both financial, economical, moral, what have you. And it was a brief 3-minute conversation. We didn't have to sell anything to Mr. Qureshi. He talked to us, he heard the word cricket, and then there he was, 2 steps in, at first diving into this tournament, not only supporting it from a financial perspective, but flying in to Chicago to host the final, to be part of that fabric. It just goes beyond just the dollars that are involved. It's the intent, the availability, the involvement. All of those things are just phenomenal as far as Mr. Qureshi. Sometimes I ask myself, how does he do it? He does not, and he must not have a huge sleep cycle because he's up all the time.
Yeah, he's up. He harasses his friends all the time. You'll get a message from him at 3 a.m. in the morning, and he said, okay, he's going to go to sleep very shortly, but then rest assured at 7 a.m. he emails you again. It's unbelievable. But that is the man. These days I interviewed him this morning. He said that he's working 18 and 19 hours a day now. So I asked him. I say, is that anything different? Because that's normally his plan. But you brought up a very valuable point about associations and what MAQ Qureshi has flown himself and others across to, including myself, across to Chicago. I think we've all become a very close-knit family, and that is something that is very, very good indeed, because it lends support. Support goes both ways. He would have supported you, but earlier on I would have mentioned the tremendous support that you and Midwest have also given to Mr. Qureshi. We always find that time to be at Karai Corner, sitting and having a meal. And, Karai Corner to me, I just told a friend from Chicago last week, I said, I'm wondering, we were speaking of food, and I said, well, you can get the best food at the Karai Corner. And, I don't know if the restaurant is open, because he was also trying to find out, because he wanted good food.
Yes, the restaurant unfortunately has been closed, just based on the fact that there's not enough business sense to keep it open, and the fact that we also want to be very careful in the type of things that we serve during these times. So we are looking for guidance from our local authorities to see where to go with that. But here we are. just eating home cooking these days, which is tremendous, by the way. If the wife
Once
is
it's you, once it's you and your wife there, I know my little brother will be very happy with the food that he's getting, and it's really wonderful, wonderful times. We miss that. We miss Chicago. We miss going to Karai Corner. We miss going to Washington Park. But obviously, the work at the new cricket stadium to be built by CCUSA, Mark Qureshi, and yourself, that would have stopped for a little while as well.
Yes, obviously all things have been put on pause, right? And that's one of the big initiatives that we had that we're planning to open up in 2020. And now we've lost about 3 months of planning, engineering, negotiations, and all of those valuable government type of interactions, which in itself take quite a long time to accomplish anyways. And then on top of that, we add the complications of these circumstances. That part is looking a little bit grim now, considering that we would have something ready by 2020. So hopefully things will pick up and we'll move along and provide a good platform for our youth to be able to enjoy cricket in Hanover Park, which has been a great home to us for past 20 years.
And I know that your players are missing the cricket. They can also join MAQ TV. MAQ TV has been an important part in the fabric of Midwest cricket as well. Tell us a bit about your association with MAQ TV.
Great product, Vinod. I think one of the things, just like cricket all over the world, was something that was not as huge until TV came into play. And then it just bombarded the sporting fabric of the entire globe with so many followers of the sport. The ability to commercialize the sport within the framework of your television is just unending. It's never ending. So similar to that, I think MAQ TV has exploded the footprint of cricket awareness within the country. Not only for people who are just viewers, but more importantly for people who are players, and even more importantly for players who want to be candidates to be selected, because now they have a visual footprint that can be archived and be summoned on demand to ensure that we can present some of those things to the higher authorities to show them how do we perform at the highest levels of the sport within the US. So just not a regular TV channel, but the ability to take cricketers from grassroots level to the national platform is MAQ TV is the vehicle that a lot of these cricketers have used to get there.
Yes, and I know that MAQ TV has been in Chicago on a number of occasions. We were just there last year, and of course the response was really great. And you're quite right. It gives the players a platform to be seen, and that could take them to other leagues in the world as well as into the U.S. national team. Best moving along quickly as well, Shiraz. There were a lot of plans for youth cricket this year from CCUSA. I know whatever CCUSA does, it tends to also reverberate with Midwest. A number of your young players, they would have looked forward to being around the Midwest around this time. I know my dear little buddy Mahat is one of them, and I want you to give him all my love. He is one who would have looked forward to cricket this year. Is there anything in train for the youngsters in terms of the structure at Midwest moving forward when all is clear?
So yes, Vinod, I think good leadership means to be able to point out areas where you have not succeeded much. And unfortunately, this is an area where I think we have not succeeded as much as we could have or we should have. And not because of lack of intent, but just because of the sheer geography of where we are. Chicago, as you know, is become a very disparate community with the drive or ride times up to an hour and a half between two locations. And for that reason, it has been a very difficult situation for us to identify a central location which is convenient for all our parents who have these youth potential cricketers to be able to bring them and bring them to one place to start coaching them and preparing them to fill in our shoes. Having said that, I think we've always had the interest and intent, and we are always looking at ideas. And one name that we mentioned, we forgot to mention in our lineup of people to thank was Zafar Shah. So earlier this year, we were talking to Mr. Zafar Shah, who's the tournament um, rules committee, rules director, or what have you for CCUSA. His entire cricketing life has been spent on developing youth cricket in Canada. And we were leaning on trying to partner with him to understand the challenges of our market and trying to bring a product that could be successful, because we've tried a couple of times to bring in our parents, our youth cricketer, but it has kind of been very excited, met for the first few weeks, and then it kind of sizzled off just based on the driving distances. So we were relying on Mr. Zafar Shah, trying to get a program in place, work with him to roll out something for our youth participants within even Chicago Cup or Unity Cup. So we're hopeful that given the time now and planning, we can work with him and roll out a product that is more acceptable to our geography, and hopefully that can lift off, if not this year, definitely by 2021.
Well, that's good news indeed, because I know that, you would sooner rather than later, if that happens, you would be able to have a team at the Youth US Open which MAQ has brought on stream now for the last 2 years. We've had 4 teams from Trinidad and Tobago come up in 2019, and I'm sure that those teams would be happy to come to Chicago as well if you have a tournament or even a single team just to play some bilateral cricket. It's all for development. But tell me, with the MAQ Stadium coming on stream, I know there has been a delay, as you just mentioned. Are there provisions to have like cricket clinics or even an academy there?
Yes, so there are several individuals that are putting in their time and effort in ensuring that they give back to the community. There's a gentleman by the name of Mehul Shani who has a cricket academy, which is not too far from where I am. There's a couple of other smaller footprint cricket academies. There's youth cricket is pretty huge in St. Louis, which is not too far from Chicago. So it makes a lot of sense for us to kind of gather our youth cricketers. One of the challenges that we've seen, I don't know if other places are seeing these, most of our young cricketers now are more gravitating towards the tape ball or the tape tennis ball, shorter format of the game. They go in, even at their schools. The lack of facilities and a structured program of a leather ball cricketing sport in the schools is really affecting how we get some of these resources in. But in the past, we worked with After School Matters, which is a program by City of Chicago School District to introduce youth to cricket. And the large footprint of subcontinental families within the Chicago's community has lent itself to a great success, so that we're trying to leverage those programs to introduce kids to more leather ball cricket rather than just the tape ball, tennis ball, the softer versions, if you will, of that.
Well, I know right now your attention is occupied with, seeing if Unity Cup could come through and, monitoring the situation in terms of the COVID-19. But knowing you and knowing your insatiable appetite for cricket and cricket development as well, are there anything new on the horizon that we can look forward to in Chicago in terms of cricket when things go back to normal?
Yes, so we were looking at a lot of new things. We were looking at MAQ 59 as an opening settlement of trying to get cricketers warmed up, cricketers that want to play with other cricketers and not typically with their team. So we're trying to kind of bring that flavor of cricket to Chicago. We're also trying to introduce some shorter formats of cricket with the red ball, which is a little bit of a challenging enterprise, which is a little bit of a non-traditional approach to white kit cricket and red ball cricket, really, where we can get all of the benefits of a swinging red ball and challenge the batsman, but with a shorter format. So not the 40, 50 overs that we traditionally offer here, but just the 30 or even the 20. We're trying to kind of push the envelope to see if we can provide some balance back to the bowlers in the fabric of the sport in a T20 by giving them a red cherry as opposed to a white one that's pretty straight.
Yes, I tell you something. My son Liam always tells me that the red ball swings a lot more than the white.
Absolutely. It is. Sometimes we've got people who are such great exponents of that swing with the red ball in Chicago, because we have got one of the oldest red ball league here in the country, that some of the very good batsmen have trouble, and then these guys can be very tricky and very hard to handle with the red ball, and they've now lost the ability to spend the amount of time that is required for a 40 or a 50 over game on the field. So one of the things that we're trying to look at is to see how to keep them involved until they've prepared their understudies, to keep making sure that the skills of cricket are passed on. And definitely the red balls are more difficult to hit, tend themselves more to swing and seam. And it's just a test, a good test for the batsman. So we're looking at all of those new ideas to see if we can provide some energy or some nuances into the cricket within our local cricket community.
That'll be great. And of course, once that happens, MAQ TV will be there to bring it to your screen so you can see all the initiatives that Shiraz is speaking about. When it do come out, you'll have it right in your living rooms. Well, Shiraz, just to switch a bit, how has it been in your household? What's a typical day for Shiraz and Mahad now in this COVID-19 era?
It varies. We are a extremely weather dependent community. So if the weather or the temperatures hit north of 50 degrees, it's a very happy household. It's a very active household. We want to go out, we want to eat more, and then we want to burn more, and we want to go on a bike ride or rollerblading or have some throwdowns even, and enjoy the physical elements of good weather. But if it's under 50 or 40 degrees, then it becomes a very lazy day, which is not a good situation for the mother, because now we are all just sulking in front of the TV in bed, asking for things on a regular basis. And unfortunately, not all of us together. We ask in intervals of each individual. So instead of doing one thing at one time, she ends up doing four things at four different times. So it becomes so she's praying for good weather all the time. So we are all out and about.
I know Asma is also doing that. I saw recently you was playing basketball.
Yes, we've got a hoop in the back. I've got a large basement, so we have like these taped tennis balls that we use to play with, and we kind of simulate cricketers, right? Because as a child, when I was growing up, I never played any of my cricket as Shiraz Najam. I played as Imran Khan or Wasim Akram or Saeed Anwar. So I'm trying to pass that passion of sport and idealization of cricketers. And my son is a big fan of Babar Azam, and every time he goes up and puts up his bat, he's always playing as he is Babar Azam, and he's emulating, simulating games between PSL teams within our basement. So it lends itself to a lot of interest, and we've got like cups and tournament winning trophies that we put aside, and at the end of each game, we end up being winners or losers on either side.
Well, at least it brings interest and it gives you something to do in this situation. Well, Shiraz, we want to thank you for joining us here on MAQ TV. It's always a pleasure speaking to you, and I'm sure we'll be coming back to you many, many times during this period of so-called lockdown. We want to wish you and your family all the best. Please stay safe. We look forward to seeing you again, brother.
Likewise, Vinod, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Interview feels so much better if Vinod Mamchen is hosting it. Because of all the perspective that you bring to it. I also want to take this opportunity to wish not just you, the entire staff of Cricket Council USA, Mr. Maq Qureshi, for great initiatives during these times, such as MAQ TV being broadcasting a lot of cricket games and what have you. I also want to thank all the cricketers in the country to do their part. It is important that whoever is blessed with whatever resources they can spare at this time, they tend out and lend a hand to people in need. I'm sure a lot of people are already doing that, but just trying to kind of use this platform to get out there and let people know that please reach out to people back home in your countries or any other organizations that are supporting medical staffers or people anywhere. Please go out and support them as much as you can if you're the ones that are blessed.
Thank you, brother. Keep safe, and we'll chat soon.
Have a good one, Vinod.
So you've heard it there from Shiraz Najam, who is a valued member of the Cricket Council USA setup and also the president of Midwest Cricket League. Continue viewing MAQ TV as we keep you company during this COVID-19.